My name is Betty Sawyer, and I'm the director of the Utah Juneteenth Freedom and Heritage Festival and Holiday Committee. This is a journey that we've been on through my nonprofit, Project Success Coalition, for the last 33 years. And we're so excited to be here today with you all and our mayor and city council representative and others to help commemorate this year's first federal holiday anniversary and Utah's inaugural Juneteenth state holiday. So let's give ourselves a big hand. As we know, and you may have read by now, that Juneteenth is that day in June 19th, 1865, when word of freedom finally made it to those enslaved in Galveston, Texas. This was 2.5 years following the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation by President Abraham Lincoln. There are many stories about why it took 2.5 years for word to get to Galveston, but some of the most popular tie in with the fact that, hey, people were used to free labor. Let's keep this going as long as we can. And so General Gordon Granger was dispatched to go to Galveston, along with about 117,000 colored troops that were in the area, to deliver General Order Number 3 that was connected with those words in the Emancipation Proclamation. And I'm going to read that for you. The Order of Texas are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and hired labor. The freedmen are advised to remain quietly at their present homes and work for wages. They are informed they will not be allowed to collect at military posts, and they will not be supported in idleness either there or elsewhere, by order of Major General Granger, F.W. Emory, Major A.A. And so the words at the bottom of that proclamation is something that we'll talk about later, but again, we're so glad to have you here with us as we commemorate this holiday in Utah. And at this time, I would like to invite Ms. Terry Hughes, who is president of the Weber State University NAACP College Chapter, to do our Negro Anthem.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicings rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as a rolling sea. Sing a song full of the hope that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the faith that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won.
Thank you, Terry. At this time, we'd like to invite our mayor, Mayor Mendenhall, to the podium to share remarks with us. And we're excited that we are able to come back to Salt Lake City again this year to commemorate this important holiday.
Thank you to my friend and our leader, Ms. Betty Sawyer. And I hope you'll come back to Salt Lake City every year in perpetuity to celebrate Juneteenth and to help us raise the flag. And as we do, and as what we invented last year on Juneteenth, we're all going to take turn in helping to raise the flag when it comes time. It's an honor to be joining our Black community today in raising our Juneteenth flag in Salt Lake City. This is everybody's capital city in Utah. Whether you're a Salt Laker or you live in another county far from here, we are your capital city and we celebrate Juneteenth as an entire statewide community. Happy to be here in the front yard of City Hall. Juneteenth has been celebrated in Salt Lake City for decades by our community members. It's exciting now that we get to mark it as a federal holiday this coming weekend, and also that there are dozens of planned events in the city and around the state. But just because more Americans are getting on board, more companies, more organizations with Juneteenth does not make it new. It doesn't also make it any more significant or meaningful than it was before. Today's a day that we begin to celebrate which we should all year round. What's lived in the hearts and the minds of Black Americans for nearly 160 years as a holiday. It's been celebrated in homes and churches, regardless of the wider acceptance in this nation. It's a day of celebration and unity, and I'm grateful to be included and invited to celebrate alongside our community members who have been carrying this torch for generations. Thank you to Ms. Betty Sawyer and the Juneteenth planning committees and the community organizers who have worked tirelessly year after year after year to ensure that Juneteenth is recognized and that it's celebrated in a respectful and in an authentic way. And thank you to Representative Hollins for sponsoring the Juneteenth bill. We'll hear from Representative Hollins in a moment. And thank you for all you do to keep the stories and the traditions associated with Juneteenth alive and well and hopefully thriving here in Salt Lake City. I'm going to turn the time over to Council Chair Dan Dugan, followed again by Betty Sawyer. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry, for that wonderful song. Very beautiful. Thank you, Mayor, for putting this together. And I also want to express my gratitude to Betty Sawyer and Representative Hollins, who made this day possible here in Utah and also made it possible for a federal holiday. Thank you. Nearly 160 years ago, the Emancipation Proclamation changed the trajectory of the United States. It was a huge first step on the long march we continue today. A day that has been celebrated in Black communities across the country ever since. And a day, I must confess, was never given the same significance in my education. It was not until the last few years that women like Opal Lee, who at 89 walked from Fort Worth, Texas to DC to draw attention to Juneteenth, followed by other activists who took to the streets for racial justice, that the nation finally took notice. Today, Salt Lake City and the state take one more step in recognizing the importance of Juneteenth, while also accepting the long road still to travel for justice and equality. So today, let's take this opportunity to celebrate, educate, and acknowledge our history. Keep the faith. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Chair. Following the end of apartheid in South Africa, Nelson Mandela made sure to push to establish the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. As we look at where we are with Juneteenth today as a state holiday, as a federal holiday, and all of the work that has happened across the state to promote equity, inclusion, and justice, it's important that this becomes a part of our Juneteenth celebration as well. The importance of truth-telling, that reckoning we need to have with our past in order for us to move forward and vibrantly into our future. The importance of learning from our mistakes, the importance of learning our deeper history. I'm often challenged to share with people that I went to the same schools as they did. So I like that same information coming up about our extensive history in this country. If it wasn't for my parents and siblings and me taking that journey on my own, I would be so far behind in understanding what Juneteenth is even all about. And so we encourage all of us where we are. All we can do is start from where we are, and we don't know what we don't know. So I'm challenging us to learn more, to do more, and to make that commitment on restorative justice. It's not enough to acknowledge it, but we have to engage in those courageous conversations about what has happened, whether it was redlining and denying of benefits to our GIs, whether it was denying education, whether it was denying employment. All of these things have intergenerational impacts on where we are today. And if we are able, if we're going to and really committed to changing those things, it's going to take all of us working 200% to bring about those changes. And so that's our challenge today. As you celebrate Juneteenth, we celebrate it in so many different ways. It could be sitting around the dinner table having a conversation, or a barbecue in the backyard with friends, or coming to Ogden this weekend for a wonderful celebration at the amphitheater. You know, gotta stick in that plug, okay? Or coming back to Salt Lake on Monday, our official state holiday at the Gallivan Center for our Health and Wellness Expo. Because health is a major issue for all people, all of our Utahns. And so it's an opportunity for us, again, to come together and do the difficult work that is required. And so as we continue the celebration and commemoration, it would be all for naught if we don't do the difficult work ahead to bring about a more just and fair society here in Salt Lake, in Utah, and across the country. Thank you so much for being here. And before I take my seat in the back, I want to bring up my dear friend and colleague, Sandra Hollins. Representative, yeah, we can do that. Representative Hollins also happens to be my soror, so I'm going to put in another plug for Delta today. But in 2016, I reached out to Representative Hollins as our first African-American elected state legislator and said, Sandra, I need your help. I had reached out to Neil Hansen a few years before to try to get Juneteenth recognized as a state holiday, and it made it through the House but didn't get anywhere in the Senate. We tried again. It made it through the House and didn't get anywhere to the Senate. So when I saw Representative Hollins, I'm like, this is our year, it's gonna happen. And she gladly accepted the call to take leadership in sponsoring our Juneteenth Day of Observance. And Alvin Jackson sponsored it in the Senate. And we were able to get that passed in 2016 as a day of observance. And Governor, was it Herbert? Yes, he signed that into law. We weren't done. So I went back to her, and at that time, there was a lot going on that legislative session. And she said, Betty, we may need to wait until next year. I said, okay, I'm gonna hold you to it. And so I went back again and said, Sandra, I think it's our time. And she says, yes, it is. And so Sandra, along with Senator Jake Andrick, decided that they would co-sponsor this bill, Sandra taking the leadership. And guess what happened? Come on. It happened. And so without further ado, bringing my sister, my friend, I call her my representative even though I'm in Weber County, probably along with every other person of African descent in Utah, Representative Sandra Hollins.
Thank you. It is such an honor and such a pleasure to be here. And thank you, Mayor, for honoring Juneteenth in the city and leading out on that. As we said, I'm Utah State Representative Sandra Hollins, and it was my honor to first sponsor the commemorative holiday and actually sponsor this holiday. I want to thank my colleagues up at the Capitol who stood behind me and supported me, and it was a bipartisan effort. It wasn't just a Democrat thing or a Republican thing. It was us working together. I want to thank my co-sponsor, Senator Jake Andrick, because when I sat down and had a conversation with him, he was totally on board. He said, who do you have as your Senate sponsor? And I said, well, I don't have anybody right now. He said, I'm on board. He said, I want to do it. And so I really want to thank Senator Andrick for that. I want to thank Miss Betty Sawyer and her team. As she said, this was 33 years in the making. Oh my gosh. And you know, I am one that always acknowledge. It would be very arrogant of me to think that I stand before you on my own. And I know it was people like her that have laid the foundation for me to be here. You know, and many, many others who are not here with us right now. When she brought this to me and said, this is our year, I was like, yes, ma'am, let's do this. Let's do this. You know, also Pastor Davis reached out to me. He called me one day. He said, hey, we're going to make Juneteenth a holiday. I said, yes, sir. He said, okay. And that was the end of the conversation. And so this is in honor of all of them. You know, as we celebrate this year, let's remember, let's reflect on where we've been, but also let's look at where we're going. In this nation, not only in this nation, but in our state. Let's take a reflection of ourselves, of who we are. Let's start with, as Michael Jackson said, let's start with the man in the mirror and take a look at ourselves and who we are, and are we contributing to the discourse that is happening. But I also want you to take time to spend time with your family and pass on those important family stories and teaching history. The history of this nation and the history of our state. I know in the Black culture, oral history has been very important, very, very important. One of my favorite things to do is when I go home and go see my family in Natchez, Mississippi, is to sit and listen to the stories of my family history and where we've come from and some of the things that my family did and they accomplished, and it installs a sense of pride. And so I'm going to encourage you to have those conversations in your family, have those conversations with your kids so that we can continue to move forward in this nation and pass down that very important history. So again, thank you all for being here. I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. I love all of you and all that you do to support me. A shout out as Betty, thank you. As Ms. Betty Sawyer said, not only is she my mentor, but she also happened to be my sorority sister in Delta Sigma Theta, and I've got to tell you, these are some powerful women who have their hand in almost everything that happens in this state. Nothing happens in this state without a Delta being there, and they came out in full force and spoke in favor of this bill. And so thank you to each and every one of you.
As we come to a close on this historic flag raising, I just want to put a shout out to Miss Cindy Shorter, one of our newest residents of Utah and Salt Lake, who's come on as the president and CEO of the Black Chamber, the Utah Black Chamber. And we know that economic empowerment and wealth building is some of that work that we have to get done. And so at this time, Mayor, we're ready to raise that flag? All right, let's get it done. And so as we come forward, we're going to invite folk to help us out, but we're going to start with, Mayor, are you going to start raising?
No,
you want me to start? Okay.
Do you mind?
Of course not. Whatever you tell me.
Remember, Betty, you gotta put your shoulders
Oh, that's
into it.
right.